Today on Inspired Money.
Iceland Air had this little trip. You know, you can go fly direct from Denver to Iceland. It was like $600 round trip, and it included the hotel. I was like, oh my gosh, we should go. I know, it was like a crazy deal. And he was like, well, we don't have any money. And I was like, well, we have savings. He was like, yeah, we don't have any money. And I was like, okay, I'm not understanding this.
This is episode 63 with CEO of Keep Up with Mrs. Jones, LLC, and host of the daily morning show Ask the Budgetologist, Phylecia Jones. Welcome to Inspired Money. My name is Andy Wong, a managing partner at Runnymede Capital Management. Each week, we bring you an interesting person to help you get inspired, shift your perspectives on money, and achieve incredible things. From making it to giving it away, Inspired Money means making a difference, creating something bigger than oneself, and maybe, just maybe, making the world a better place. Thank you for joining me. Hey, Inspired Moneymaker, welcome back. If it's your first time listening, welcome. Inspired Money is different from other personal finance podcasts because we don't want to just learn how to live with money. We want to view money in a positive way, to inspire ourselves to live richer lives, make a greater impact, and together, make the world a better place. Thank you so much for joining me on this mission. Today we're talking to Phylecia Jones, or as she's more formally known, Mrs. Jones. You see, her website is keepupwithmrsjones.com. I met her briefly last year at the FinCon Financial Conference, but got to spend more time with her at this year's conference. In fact, in addition to seeing her speak, we got to play whirly ball in Orlando. That's a crazy game combining lacrosse, basketball, while driving bumper cars. You really have to see it to believe it, so I'll put a link of our game in the show notes if you're curious. It was a lot of fun. But that's not why I invited Phylecia on the show today. Check this. In 5 years, she paid off over $25,000 in debt, increased her net worth to over $500,000, and she left a six-figure salaried job to start a business. She's a savvy go-to budgeting nerd, speaker, and trainer. In this episode, you'll learn budgeting tips from Phylecia, since she's called the Budgetologist, how couples can communicate and collaborate in successfully maintaining a budget, and why and what she learned by committing to creating daily Facebook Lives and how it's helped her business. Now let's get inspired with Phylecia Jones. Phylecia, welcome to Inspired Money. It's so awesome to have you on the show.
Oh, thank you for having me. I'm loving this.
Let's jump right in. What's your earliest childhood memory of money?
I would say my earliest childhood memory was probably my piggy bank. I had a Miss Piggy piggy bank, and I would just put money into it and never took it out. And then I think a couple of years after I took it out, it was just fascinating that there was money in it. Then I put it all back in again.
Recycled.
Yes, I recycled the money.
That is really cool. You are the budgetologist.
I am the budgetologist.
How did you become the budgetologist?
Well, you know, I have a cousin who was a DJ, and I started off doing these Sunday evening, on Google Hangouts. And I was like, I need a name. And so you have the DJs, they call themselves mixologists. I was like, I'm going to call myself a budgetologist because I'm like a DJ spinning budgets. It was lame. It was really lame.
Actually, that's cooler than I thought, because I thought it had this like scientific ring to it. And I know that you're an engineer also by background.
No, it wasn't that fancy.
I'm like, it's like a biologist about budgets.
No, I was just watching my cousin doing mixtapes. And I was like, this would be cool.
Before you became the budgetologist, you were in computer science. You were doing engineering for the Navy?
Yes, I came out of college with a bachelor's degree in computer science, and they hired me on to be a computer scientist for the Navy. So I did a lot of researching, working with sailors and Marines, and then eventually I got my master's degree from the Naval Postgraduate School in systems engineering.
And then why a change?
It was time. I was in that job for 11 and a half years, and I just wanted to do something different. So I switched agencies and moved to Denver. And I just didn't want to do it anymore. I didn't like the job anymore.
And what was the process that brought you to become the budgetologist? I'm guessing that you wanted to follow a path of becoming an entrepreneur. How are you going to define that? What does that mean? Like, how did you find your way?
Oh, this is a fun story. So for years when I was at the job and I didn't like it, I would always joke. I was like, you know what? One day I'm just going to make cupcakes for a living. I was like, cupcakes aren't hard. You can't be unhappy around cupcakes. And, by the time I moved to Denver, and the job was actually just getting really, really bad. And I just did not like working with the group there. And I was like, okay, something has to change. But when you're making six figures, you got benefits, it's hard to just give it up. And the first year they offered buyouts for people who wanted to take an early retirement. And then when I realized it was open to anybody to go. So that first year I was like, oh, no, I can't do that. And then the second year, it was just sitting there. I had gone to a business networking meeting and I wanted to explore a different business or starting a business. And I met a business coach. We went through a few things, but that buyout just automatically popped up. I had a boss who wanted me to work 24/7 support for another year. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is going to be the time. And the deadline was just getting very, very close to when the window closed for that buyout. And I literally put it in 15 minutes before the deadline because I was just so scared. And that's how I walked away and started being an entrepreneur.
So you're really torn. That was not an easy decision.
No, because you grow up, you grow up being told you have to have a job. And you have to have a job. And I come from one of those families. I don't come from a family of entrepreneurs. It's all, everybody goes to school, you go to work, you retire, you get some benefits, and you just stay there. So it was really hard. And you're making the money. You're making a lot of money. Your life is good. But on the other side, you just hate the job. So it was like, all right, what do you do? And I remember I told my husband, if I just had 1 year, I can make something happen. Now that's a whole different story too. But it's like, if I just had 1 year, let's give it a try. And we went back and forth because I was like, you don't want me to not have a job. And he was like, this is your decision. And it really did come down to me. And it was scary. It was very, very scary.
You mentioned talking to a business coach.
Mm-hmm.
How important was that? And in working with a business coach, were you exploring your passion and purpose? Since you weren't happy at work, did you have discussions trying to figure out what would make you happy?
It's not that deep. I met someone and I got invited to a business networking group, and everyone had to go around and say what their business was. And of course, I was at the end, and I've never been around people that talk that way. And they got to me and I was like, I don't have a business. I just have a notebook of ideas and I hate my job and I don't know what to do. And everyone yelled out, her name is Carrie Conley. They yelled out her name and I was like, okay, who is this woman? Everybody was saying I need to talk to. And she's a vision coach. And when I went to her VIP day with some other business owners, I just randomly mentioned, because I didn't have a business idea. I didn't really have a solid business idea. And I said, what I do for fun, I like to do budgeting spreadsheets. And someone's like, why don't you help people with that? I was like, with what? With budgeting. I was like, that doesn't sound too sexy, because I wanted to be an international jewelry saleswoman. I don't know what that means, but that just sounded fun.
Or cupcakes.
I still have friends who ask me when the cupcake shop is going to open, but that's too much work now. And it really just started from there. People were like, why don't you help people with that? And I was like, never even considered it. And it literally took off that day.
What took off?
Working with people with money.
Just like that?
Just like that.
So from a notebook full of ideas
and a
to
cupcake.
The idea, to someone asking you or having a discussion and people saying, what is it that you do and enjoy? And you're like, I love spreadsheets.
Well, I was just like, yeah, just for fun. I like to do budgeting spreadsheets. And they were like, really? Nobody does that for fun.
And you were off and running.
Yeah.
How did you start?
Well, one of the ladies there said, oh my gosh, you can help me. I'm bad with money. But I knew she was an extreme creative and giving her a spreadsheet was never going to work. So I actually went home that night, and for the next 2 weeks, because we had a date to get together just to try something out. And I had to come up with a more creative way of doing budgeting, because I knew right then and there she was never, ever, ever going to look at a spreadsheet. And my spreadsheets are they're a little intimidating, and I didn't want to scare her. So that's why I came up with a different way of budgeting. And it literally took off from there. She was my first client, and we check in like once a year now.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
How many years ago was that?
This was, oh my gosh, my anniversary is October 1st, 2018. So it'll be exactly 4 years.
Hey, congrats.
I know. I've been around this long. It's kind of scary.
I want to dig into the spreadsheet since you say it's intimidating. What does that mean?
It was, so this is what I did for fun when I was bored at work. I literally would calculate my paycheck to see how close I got to how much I needed to pay the IRS or not pay the IRS. And it told me everything that was going in. So it would take my paycheck and kind of do all the little formulas so I can recreate the paycheck on my spreadsheet. Then I added the budget to it so that I could see how much money was going into different categories. And I do budgeting a little different. I don't do line item budgeting. I do allocation budgeting. So I just do percentages of where money should go. And I would just go back and forth and just move the money around and made it fit with each paycheck. I know, it was a little nerdy.
And how often are you checking that? Is it just boredom at work, or is it monthly, quarterly?
Well, now I have my own system. I do the 1st and 15th, but when I was at work, it was almost every other day.
Yeah, I saw that you have I don't know if it's a course or like I don't know what to call it, but I saw on your website you have a 1st and 15th. Like, that's a good place to start for people.
Yeah, that's my free guide, is the 1st and 15th, how to manage your money in 2 hours or less each month. And that's where you just, on the 1st and 15th, you look at everything. You don't try to save the world. You just go and, be accountable to your finances, because most people just don't look. And so you got to train people to, like, all right, we got to start looking first, then we can make some changes.
So that's a good starting point for the average person.
The average person.
And then what? To make that a habit?
To make it a habit, and because I talk to a lot of business owners and budgeting, I say this is a process in your business, just like every other process. Getting clients, doing your podcast, managing your money has to be a process. And I call it the CFO day. These are your CFO days where you have to sit down for 1 hour and just, look at what's going on, pay the bills, see where money is going, check in with your accountants, your bookkeepers, everybody. And of course, if, as time goes on, you can, take more time for it. But it's really to start a habit, start a new habit, learn a new habit, new triggers, so that it's not that you're always behind your finances. You're just always a step ahead of them.
I'm curious for you. It sounds like you really love spreadsheets. You were budgeting on your own. I mean, it's not like someone was forcing you to do it.
No.
You like doing it. But you're married. Mm-hmm. Is this something that you do on your own, or do you do it with your husband? Do you have discussions around it?
I'm officially the CFO in our house. So I manage all of the money. But what we do is at the end of each month, we have to have a financial discussion. And I give him the report on everything, like how much money is in the bank accounts, where the money went. We go through if we got to pay bills, like, hey, you owe the house some money, because we pay the house back. The house controls all the money, the mythical house. And at the end of the month, we just kind of go in that rhythm of like, hey, here's what's going on with the finances. You have any questions? And he has access to everything, but just want to let him know, what's going on. And if I see things that are weird, and if we need to make any huge changes, that's what we do. And right now we just purchased a new RV. So we have to have extreme money talks right now. I call them disruptions when you go buy a house, something huge, and get you out of your normal financial rhythm. So now we have to have a few more discussions.
So the spreadsheet's central to having that better communication, to be monitoring and seeing everything. Like,
yes.
Where do goals fit in? And is there like a larger vision down the road that you're trying to get to?
We just bought an RV. There is no other vision now. We're done. And just to let you know, I actually don't do spreadsheets anymore.
Ooh.
I graduated. So I actually do money boards, and we put all of our financials on little Post-its on the wall. And that's how we look at the money and start making priorities of what needs to fall off, what needs to be added on. And so that way we can kind of visually see what's going on with the finances. And then eventually we get to a spreadsheet, but we need to kind of like actively, it's almost like playing chess with the money and just seeing where everything is going. So we do that so that we'll know what are the priorities right now. And when it comes to the bigger vision, I mean, the RV was one of those. So right now there's no other future stuff right now because he just broke the window on the new truck. So that's why we have to plan for these disruptions.
But the future is travel.
The future is always, it's funny when we first got married, and this is how all of this really started with us figuring out what was going on with the finances. We had a lot of money in savings. We were putting tons of money into savings and investing. And for him, savings was savings. And I was just like, no, savings is for spending. And so we had to have this week-long conversation of what's the priorities in this marriage? What are we about to do with the money and what's going on? And so we sat down and decided travel was the priority. So we cleaned up everything. And so the majority of the money after I call it the grown folks stuff, it goes toward travel, and that's what we do.
So that sounds like it's a matter of definitions. What happens? Do you have to set different buckets within your planning? So that's like one is savings and one is now called travel budget?
Yes, it's called vacation. Because so that and this was the biggest thing. And I always tell people, especially when you're getting married, it's communication. And it does take a week to like, okay, let's understand, what does savings mean to you? And we really had to sit down. It was a week long, and we did it like about 5 hours every night in the evening.
Whoa.
What does savings mean to you? Okay, what does travel mean to you? What does all this money mean? And we just had to kind of, as engineers say, you had to create your new lexicon for your marriage so that we could be on the same page. And then it made things a lot easier after that.
For many of us, it takes longer than a week.
I mean, it still takes some checking in.
It's an ongoing process.
Some checking in to make sure that, okay, did your definition change? So we have to do that every now and then.
Yeah, it's funny. I think that for me, my inclination is just to save and just put things into like a saving bucket and just don't spend anything. Like, I don't care if I have a lot of just old t-shirts. Shopping doesn't really make me that happy.
And that's why we have to be very clear because, I always, my little joke is that we're in a mixed race marriage. I race to spend, he raced to save. And it was just like, and so that's why we have the savings now, but we also have the vacation account. So it's very clear. So he can still be comfortable with his savings. And then there's still something for vacation so that it's just not sitting in savings for fun.
Yeah, because for me, I just save and like not even go anywhere and not leave my house. So it's a nice balance because my
so you
wife
need to leave the house account.
Compliments me and says, we should go on vacation. Then you find like a middle of the road.
You should gift her with a vacation account.
Yes, that's a good idea.
Just put a little bit of money in the vacation account so that you don't have to have a long discussion. And with our vacation account, it is whatever you want as long as there's money in the account. And when there is no money, we go camping.
That sounds fun.
Yeah, so he's blown the account the last 2 years. So there is no more travel.
Now, I find it interesting because it sounds like you were saying that you were just saving. No, he was saying saving and there's no money. Oh, okay. So you are the spender.
Yes, of course I'm the spender. That's why I'm the budgetologist. It's usually the spenders that have to figure out a way to not spend too much.
Right.
Savers don't have issues.
Coming up, Phylecia talks about committing to doing daily Facebook Lives, why she started, and then even fun ways of getting into conferences for free. But first, while she helps a lot of people with their finances, here's her target audience.
Most of the people, my main target audience are solo business women. And it's typically trying to understand how to manage business finances and personal finances without ruining either, without making spouses upset, and also dealing with creatives. So it's a lot to put money in front of somebody who doesn't want to look at money, doesn't want to touch money, but is running a business at the same time. So it can be a little challenging and fun at the same time.
The show notes for this episode can be found at inspiredmoney.fm/063. If you're listening in your car or wherever you are, check the show notes if you want to look up more about Phylecia or things mentioned in the episode. Also check out the clip of our whirly ball game. It's time for the Runnymede Money Tip of the Week. I want to ask you a couple of questions. Do you pay off your bills and credit cards every month? Do you have extra cash in your checking account every month? If you answered yes, that's great. You're on the right course. Now I want to know, do you keep and follow a budget? I'm asking this because many people think that if they answered yes to paying off bills and credit cards on time and that they have extra cash left over at the end of the month, that's budgeting. But it's not really. Here's the difference. Paying your bills is an action that takes place right now for things that you bought in the past. For example, your credit card bills, you probably paid for groceries and other items. That is stuff that you already bought. A budget is forward-looking. So looking at next month, it should include all the categories where you spend money, your mortgage or rent, utilities, food, but it can be more than just your typical expenses. Phylecia talked about having a vacation category. If you like gadgets, you could have a gadget category. Certainly, you should have an emergency fund category that you're contributing into. You get the idea. You might try a zero-based budget. This means before the month even starts, you're making a plan and giving every dollar a name. This means looking right now and allocating every dollar for the next month so your income minus all your expenses equals zero. Hopefully you're able to work it out so you're taking care of bills and know how much is going towards savings and other future planning, like vacations and travel. I'll put a few budget apps in the show notes as well, and I'll link to Inspired Money episode 45, where I talk to Peter Polson, founder of Tiller Money, about the power of spreadsheets and tracking your money. I hope that you find it helpful. That's the Runnymede Money Tip of the Week. Inspired Money is brought to you by Runnymede Capital Management. We help you to plan, invest, and worry less. So what's your biggest financial challenge right now? Do you need help making a plan or help consolidating old accounts? We can help you get financially organized and set up for the future. Email me at awang@runnymede.com. That's RUNNYMEDE.com. Or go to inspiredmoney.fm/Andy. I'd love to hear from you. And maybe we can even schedule a short call since it can be much easier to talk money. You're listening to Inspired Money. I'm Andy Wong.
And I'm super impressed because I think just over a year ago, you decided doing daily Facebook Lives, addressing all of these topics for your audience. What was the motivation for that?
Oh, wow. So the motivation for the Facebook Lives, actually, it's a deeper story. I went to the doctor in January and they wanted to put me into surgery. And I really wasn't ready because I had this year. I had the perfect year in 2017. And of course, whenever you have the perfect year, I had it all planned. I was going to do all this speaking and traveling. And I tried to negotiate with the doctor to put the surgery off for another year. And she was like, no. I was like, okay, fine. But that was like the beginning of, all right, as a money coach, I started cycling out of clients and I was like, okay, I need to do something. I also had some personal tragedies and people I lost last year. And it was just like oh my gosh, I call it a domino effect of things that happen. And it was one of those things. And I was like, all right, universe, I hear what you're saying. If I want something to happen, I'm going to have to sit down and make it happen myself. And while I was on leave or rest, recovering from surgery, I was like, you know what? I've always wanted to do this podcast thing. And I said, I'm just going to try it. And so I started live streaming. Then I turned it into a podcast and it literally started July 1st. And every day I was like, I'm just going to turn on the camera. And a lot of the inspiration came from my husband who watches Twitch, which are just video gamers playing video games, and people pay them. And I was like, all right, I'm just going to see what happens. And it's been over 395 shows now. And I know that's not over a year, but when I'm traveling, I can't get on. But typically, I am live almost every day. So it's crazy.
Your commitment and consistency blows my mind. I still can't get over the fact that you don't take the weekend off.
No, I don't take the weekend off, and I actually need to do it today. No, I don't know. For whatever reason, for me, I needed to do it every day to keep this rhythm going, because I knew if I broke it, I wouldn't keep it going. So that's why I was just like, I'm going to do it every day for a year, and I signed myself up to do it for another year. So I'll just take it a year at a time and just see what happens. And it does make it makes you realize how fast a year goes, though. Like,
so you've committed to year 2.
Mm-hmm.
What are some of the things that you learned doing it over the course of year 1?
I learned that people actually watch. And the people who watch are not the people that you see watching. It's a weird thing of people who are like, yeah, I've been watching you for over a year now. It's like, oh my gosh, who are you? And by going live every day, I guess you do make an impact when you finally get an email that says, oh gosh, I saw this show. You changed everything for our family. I start talking to my kids about money. I love what you're doing. So that was probably one of the biggest ones I did not expect. But of course, on the other side, you grow your following, you start making money, and people start recognizing you. But it's been a very interesting experience doing this every day and going live. And the biggest challenge for me was just seeing how consistent I could be, because that has never been one of the things I was good at. And I was like, all right, we're going to do this challenge. So it's actually worked out very well. It's actually worked out very well.
You're using technology as a way to get massive distribution, or at least potentially you can get massive distribution. Yeah. You can grow an audience. How is it different from before you started? How are you getting clients? And then is the Facebook Live and building that audience, I'm assuming that opens opportunities to either bring on clients or it supports your speaking.
Well, the way I started when I quit my job, I didn't know how to start a business. I'm not like a lot of people that we meet at FinCon or other conferences that were side hustling and then started into a business. I literally quit cold turkey and started working with a business coach who only knew how to grow a coaching business. And they weren't very keen on online. They did not believe online businesses would work. So I went a completely different route of learning how to do high ticket sales, getting people into long-term coaching programs. And it really wasn't the best fit for me, because I just didn't really like it that much. But that's how I learned. And I had to go out, and I was utilizing speaking to get clients, doing discovery sessions. And it's a lot of work to try to close people that you've only met one time into a $3,000, $5,000 program on the phone. But people do it. And I wasn't that great at it. But that's how I did get clients, from speaking, going to other coaches' events and getting people in that way. But it's a lot of work. I mean, the payoff is great because you get the high ticket person, but you got to put in a lot of effort just to get that one person. And because I couldn't travel and I was recovering from surgery, I was like, all right, we got to figure out a different way to get in front of people. And so now I still do a little bit of the coaching model, but now with the live streaming, it just helps. It's opened up so many doors for other things. Like I landed on a television spot last year on budgeting, and so many people are like, oh my gosh, did you pitch them? I was like, no, they found me, and the guy said, I watched one of your live streams. I was like, okay, that's kind of cool. And I've gotten a lot more speaking engagements, and just kind of a few more people that are like, okay, this is interesting. Like, what are you doing over here? And it's also been fun in realizing that going live every day is like a thing. I thought everybody did this, but they don't.
I think it feels to me like nobody does it, because I don't know. It's like the vulnerability of turning on the camera live and not being able to hit pause.
There's
or
no
edit.
edits.
You're just going.
There are no edits. Easy. And it's harder for me to do a regular podcast because I start over so many times with the camera. It's just like, all right, here we go. There's no edits and you get what you get. So it's a lot easier for me.
So is that partially mindset once you're used to it?
I think it's mindset. And I think the other thing is getting over being perfect. And I think that's the biggest one. You have to be over being perfect, because if you keep trying to be perfect, you know, you're going to be like I was. You buy the video equipment and every video sucks. Every video doesn't look good. And so now all the equipment sits in your basement like it did for me for a year and a half, not being utilized. You buy the microphones and then you don't push start on the podcast because you're trying to be perfect, look for the perfect script. And I think the biggest thing that really happened for me last year, my mentor's son passed away. And while I was at the funeral, someone else that I look up to, and she really just told me, she said, all I can say about this is that life is short. And if you're not doing what you want to do, you need to go start doing it right now. And that was just like the eye opener of like, okay, let's just go do it. There's no perfect. And I just think I just stopped trying to be perfect. And it was just a lot easier. It's like, be yourself.
Oh, it's nice seeing a silver lining that comes out of a tragedy.
Yeah.
The thing I don't like about the live video is that you can't stop. Like, you just have to keep moving. If you watch your video from...
I don't watch my videos now.
Yeah, do you? I want to know, like, from July... What was that? July of 2017?
Yeah, July 1st.
To now, do you see a huge difference in how you are on camera?
To be honest, I don't really go back and watch anything. So I'm gonna, maybe we'll do a part 2 interview. I'll go watch some. I watched a piece of one and I was like, wow, that's interesting. It's not much different. I could tell it was a little stuffy. And what I realized is that being in business, you have to take a stand on something. And after a while, I could tell, just some of the videos I watch, I could tell from, all right, I'm going to tell you how to budget, to like, all right, let's sit down and talk about this because I know what's going on in your house. And just being a little bit more you. And I think that's been the biggest thing of kind of finding a voice, taking a stand and being okay with what I don't like, what I do like, and like hardcore, like as a business owner, don't do this. And if you want to do it, go for it. You know, you're an adult, but it's been a journey. And I think it's just been a voice journey too. Because you can't be boring.
So do you put that pressure on yourself?
No.
Do you have to think going into like hitting record? How am I going to educate and entertain right now?
No, I actually do not. I literally just take a shower and turn the camera on and just say, let's see what we're going to talk about today. And it's been fun when people are like, oh my gosh, you're so entertaining. I love your jokes. And I was like, I didn't do any jokes. Like, if people think I'm funny, like what's going on here? Because I emceed an event a couple of weeks ago and they were like, oh my gosh, your jokes were like perfect. You timed it all right. And I was like, I didn't do any jokes. Like, what are they talking about? So I guess just entertaining. And I do love it when people are like, you're hilarious. I was like, I really wasn't trying to be, but okay.
Are there recurring questions and problems that people ask for help with when
All
you're
the time.
addressing the audience?
As a money person, and you should know this, the questions are always the same. How do I start with budgeting? How do I manage? And you have to be okay with the fact that you're going to get the same questions. And even though you think that you can be at like level 10, most of the questions are at like level 1. Like, how do I get started? What do I look at when it comes to a budget? And what do I not pay for as a business owner? And those have been cool, and just realizing that, you know, not everybody knows exactly where to start or where to finish. So, you know, and you just take it in stride and you just keep answering the same questions. And my goal is just to let people know, like, hey, if you need help, ask me, because I know what it's like not getting good financial advice or being too scared. And then, of course, it's too late by that point.
So you're Facebook Live and then the audio becomes your podcast.
Yes.
Can you just quickly talk about, I know that you have themes for different days.
Uh-huh.
And how did that come together? And what are those themes?
Well, eventually, and I started this early on because I think after like the first couple of weeks, I was like, I need to figure out what I'm going to talk about every day. But I knew me. I'm not good at organizing myself, because I know some people like, let me see your content calendar. Like, well, yeah, okay. Yeah, don't hold your breath on that one. And I was like, there was no content calendar. And I realized, because I tried all of that stuff, never, ever, ever was going to work for me. So I had to just come up with a simple way to have something to talk about. So each day is a theme. And I'm okay with repeating the same thing over and over again, but each day just gives me a little trigger point so that I'll know what to talk about. So Sundays, I talk about personal finance. Mondays is all money coaching questions. So when I speak or when people ask me questions, I answer those. Tuesdays, I talk about speaking gigs because that's how I built my business. And I say, you got to manage your budget and feed the budget. Otherwise, that's just called going broke if you don't have any money. Wednesdays is all about mindset around money, around business, around life. So just some mindset and, trying to get your mind in the game. Thursdays is all about feeding the budget. Like, how are you making money today? Fridays are usually my fun days because I don't have as many people on Friday. So toss it up. We either crash budget. We talk about vacations, how to get into a conference for free without paying. All kinds of little tricks as a business owner. It's like, I'm just going to show you how to save money, but you didn't hear from me. And on Saturdays, all behind the scenes, all the challenges I'm going through and what I'm doing in my business in the hopes of, helping someone else. I say it's not rocket science. I'm not inventing anything new. So I just like to tell people what I'm doing and maybe it'll help them too.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
We got to go back. How does a business owner get into the conference without paying? Because I used to have like a history teacher in high school who said that the way that you get into the movie theater for free is to walk in backwards. It never worked.
No, you can't walk in backwards for a conference. All right. So here's the cool thing. Oh gosh, I actually did a whole show on this. So to get into conferences for free, the beautiful thing is that if you are a blogger or a podcaster, in some worlds, you are considered media. You could ask for a media pass, and so you can get to the conference for free. But as long as you talk about the conference every day or write about it in a positive light, you can't be negative, but you got to write about it or live stream about it so you can get into those conferences for free. You can volunteer. You can submit to speak. I always say, for all of my friends who actually do vendor booths, sometimes they need extra help running the booth. So you just ask them like, hey, can I come work the booth for you? And they're never going to make you work the entire time. So you're going to be able to go to a couple of sessions. The other thing, if you have friends, typically they always give vendors like some extra tickets and just ask like, can I have an extra ticket? And they're like, yeah. Because I usually, as a speaker, I either I get free tickets or I negotiate for some extra tickets, and I just get them just so I can have them, but I don't give them out all the time because I don't have anyone to come with me. But, just ask. If somebody asks, like, if you have a free ticket, just like, sure. The other thing is, if you have someone working the conference or speaking, I always say my assistant needs to come with me. So just ask if you can be your friend's assistant for the day. Or their camera person, because usually as a camera person, you can sneak in, and because you have a camera, nobody pays attention. I didn't say that out loud, people, but you didn't hear from me. But just if you're a photographer, you can blend in a whole lot faster. So if your friend is doing something, just say, hey, can I be your photographer for the day? And so there's a bunch of ways to get into a conference for free.
That's great advice because some of the conferences are very expensive.
Yeah. And usually by the last day, I'm never going to say this out loud, so you did not hear from me. By the last day, they kind of don't care as much. So you just walk in.
Thank you for all that advice that we didn't hear from you.
I know. You didn't hear from me and not on this show.
So congrats to you because you've been going many years now from making that decision, leaving the stability of your salary job with benefits. Like, how do you feel today?
I don't know. You're making me feel bad the way you're saying it. I left stability and a salary. There are days where I do question leaving that stability because entrepreneurship is such a huge risk. You work 10 times more than when you had a job. You're accountable to everything you're doing. You have to be okay with all of the decisions, and sometimes you don't know what decision to make, but you got to make one. It literally is an up and down roller coaster, an emotional roller coaster. It's been fun. It's been a lot of hard work, but I will say this is unlike any other journey I've ever been on. And even if it doesn't work out in the end, it's probably one of the best things I ever did to discover more about me and to meet a whole bunch of new people. It's been fun.
But you're having a lot of fun.
I am having a lot of fun.
Well, I say congratulations because you made it past that 1 year that you gave yourself.
Whew.
You didn't go back and say, all right, this is not it. You're still going.
I had to buy another year for my husband. I was like, give me another year. And also it was just trying to get him to understand that it's not as easy as you think it is. Because most coaches or whatever say, oh, we can get you to $1 million in a year. And it's like, yeah, it doesn't work. Not for me, at least. It didn't work that way. So, but yeah, so we made it to year 2 and I don't know if he's realized we're at year 4 yet. So maybe he'll wake up and it's like, you said a year. Like, what's going on here?
Phylecia, I like to ask all of the Inspired Money guests, how do you define success?
Oh my gosh, success. I have been trying to get a definition of that actually for the last couple of months. I'm a speaker coordinator and actually did a panel. And that was one of the questions, like, how do you define success? Because people say it's money, is having your name out there. I've gotten to the point, because last year was such an interesting year of losing some friends. I think success for me is being able to do what makes me happy. And it's not a passion thing. It's just being, all right, I'm happy with where I am. I love how things are going, and I can make decisions without second guessing myself. To me, that's how I define success, and just being able to look at the future and not be worried about anything. I don't know. So a really woo answer.
No, it's super interesting because it sounds like part of that is confidence and conviction in what you're doing.
Well, it's confidence, conviction, and just realizing that life is just very short. Life is extremely short, and we only have a small amount of time to, either if it's to impact the world, have some fun, but you don't have a lot of time. So you got to figure out where you want to be, where you want to go, and what you want to do. And I think as we get older, we forget that we have the ability of choice and you can exercise your choice and do kind of whatever you want to do to make you happy.
Well, thank you, Phylecia. Thanks for sharing your story.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, your adventure and your commitment to doing Facebook Lives every day. So I encourage the Inspired Money listener to go check that out. Can you tell people where they can find you, follow you, hear you, learn more about you?
You can, everyone can find me on all things the internet, Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook. I'm sure there's some other obscure ones out there, but you can find me at Keep Up with Mrs. Jones. You can go to my website, keepupwithmrsjones.com.
Thank you, Phylecia.
Thank you.
So what was your favorite Inspired Money moment? In addition to Phylicia's practical tips about budgeting and implementing it with your partner, I love her definition of success, which is to do what makes you happy. Even though I try to be the best interviewer that I can, I think I missed something during our conversation. The weight of some of her experiences last year, from needing surgery to losing people close to her. It gave Phylecia perspective. Life is short. We don't have a lot of time. There's an element of gratitude here, and to be sure to be mindful and to make the right choices that will get you to where you want to be. If you had a different favorite Inspired Money moment and takeaway, please tweet me, message me on Instagram, or let me know by going to inspiredmoney.fm/Facebook. Let's continue the conversation. Before you go, I want to thank you again for listening. Recently, Inspired Money ranked as high as 61 in Apple Podcasts Business News category, and that was no accident. That was thanks to you. If you enjoy the show, please tell a friend. If you're up for a little guerrilla podcast marketing, don't just tell them. Grab their smartphone and subscribe them. Thank you for helping more people to find out about Inspired Money and to grow our community. Together, let's make the world a better place. All the music on today's show is by Jim Kimo West. Aloha, Kimo. Have an inspired week and do something that scares you, because that's where the magic happens.